Eric's rabbit and mink coats transformed into a throw and 2 pillows. This project consists of 2 minks and a rabbit. The linings will not be used. So the next project I'm working on are 3 coats. We have this gray mink, pretty lining, but the linings will not be used in the final product. We have this brown stole, also mink. And we have this white short coat, which the customer stated that it was rabbit. And what they want to do is combine these 3 into one quilt. So let's get started. So one of the things that I quickly realized with this particular project is I was very allergic to the fur. There was a lot of flyaway. The rabbit is a very light fur, so when you cut into it, the fur will fly around, and it was bothering my sinuses. So throughout the video you're going to see me with several different kinds of masks on, depending on how the fur was affecting me. This particular white rabbit was not in the best condition. It had multiple areas where there were tears and rips, and in some spots the fur was very, very thin. So I had to be very careful with this particular fur. Here I'm just breaking down all the pieces. I'm working on the sleeve area now, and I'm going to cut them up, and I'm going to put them into 8.5-inch length strips, because we are going to make a checkerboard pattern. So I'm moving over to the gray mink. Now you can see I have my respirator on and my shield. This is to prevent any of the hairs from flying into my eyes. It seems like a little bit of overkill, but it was a necessity. By this point, my allergies were just going wild. Now that the coats have been completely deconstructed, I am starting to work on making the strips. Originally, I started out with a 12.5-inch block, and then the customer decided that we were going to make 8.5-inch blocks, making a checkerboard pattern. So I had to reconfigure some of the cuts. But yes, I do have my mask on, but I also have my HEPA filter going at the same time, really trying to cut down on the allergens that are just flying around. Now I'm working on cutting those blocks into 8.5-inch blocks. I'm also layering each block with the cold tape to help support the edges when they are going to be stitched out. Now I had previously cut the long strips into 8.5-inch lengths. Now I'm just making the squares. Once all those squares were cut, it was then time to work on the border. We're using the brown mink for this on the edges. So I'm making these borders 3.5 inches wide, and there's going to be a lot of smaller pieces that are going to have to be combined later on to create more usable fur. So all these little tiny side pieces here that are going to be removed will eventually be placed into another panel. So we're back working with the white mink, and because I didn't have enough of the squares, I'm combining all the smaller pieces to create an 8.5-inch square. So I'm using rounded pieces, which I'm going to straighten out, combine them into a square. So now that the squares were all sewn together, it's time to work on the border. I didn't have enough of the brown to go all the way completely around, so I am using some of the gray to fill in the edges, and whatever is not used in the throw will be used to make a pillow. So here are all the strips pieced together, and now I'm just adding them to the edge, and then I'll take that to the sewing machine, sew it all down to complete the throw. Here is a photograph of what it was looking like when I was laying out the fur. Once they were all pieced together, I layered my white cotton and then sewed everything together. This throw is made from 3 different furs. The first one, this dark brown right here, this was a stole, and we decided that we were going to use the stole in the border, but unfortunately, well actually it really is fortunate because the throw is much larger than anticipated. We ran out of the brown for the edge. So what we did instead is we put a little bit of the brown here at the bottom and extended the grays out to the side. And in each corner, I did a little gray cornerstone right here and right here. It actually looks really, really nice. This fur was definitely a challenge because the rabbit wasn't in the best shape and it needed a lot of supportive material underneath to prevent it from ripping and fraying. So I used in between every seam, I used the cold tape, and where it was especially thin or damaged, I used cold cloth in bigger spaces. And I just reinforced some of the areas where there was stitching prior. I am going to layer it with a cotton on the inside, and that will help it support weight when it gets moved around. And that will be tacked down by hand as well. And the client picked a black backing with a crosshatch pattern. So let's continue on. The final measurement of the project was 65 by 54. And when that was complete, it was time to work on the pillows. I made 2 18 by 18 inch pillows to go with the project. There's the little cornerstone. It is really a beautiful project. There's the backing. It was a pre-quilted black backing. And I used a black satin for the back of the pillows. come visit us at dinahsquilts.com.